what gaps to focus on, what kind of gaps can be played in the morning, and now we'll talk a little bit more about how to play them. Okay, but let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for June 27th, 2019. Qs and SPY just closed. 0.36 on the SPY is how much it is up. 0.38 on the Qs. You can see they pretty much went sideways. Tried to go higher, no follow through. Tried to go lower, no follow through. Okay, coming into today, our focus was that we would stay bearish unless we took out yesterday's high. That's going to be the same. Okay, I know that there's an important summit going on. That's going to create potential for news. So that's going to be our line in the sand. Yesterday's high, if we break over that, market is no longer looking bearish. And that will actually be giving us a daily buy setup on the Qs and SPY. So the long term remains bullish here. Right, the short term, we're waiting to see if this hourly wants to follow through. It's looking like it doesn't want to, but we're still bearish until we take out yesterday's high. Okay, all right, so pretty straightforward here on the Qs and SPY. Bearish bias. If we take out yesterday's high, we're going to be no longer bearish. We'll be neutral on the short term and bullish on the long term. We're still bullish now, but we're waiting to see if this recent hourly downtrend has more legs. Okay, so we're sticking with that for now and seeing what kind of follow through we get, expecting some kind of retest to the low from Tuesday. All right, to see if we get a retest there, and that will be follow through on the bearish bias that we will carry into tomorrow. Okay, so yesterday we talked about gaps, how big we wanted them to be. We determined that the MU was pretty decent, that we wanted to gap over this resistance here, 35.99, ended up gapping to it. That doesn't use up too many of the sellers, doesn't do too much of the price action in the pre-market, doesn't bring in too many of the sellers looking to sell at resistance. That was a good size gap, right? But the difficult thing I would say on the MU was that how do you get in, right? That really, the timing of it, is as important, maybe even more important than which gap you focus on. Okay, so the MU took off right at the open there, moved up pretty quickly, right? And if you didn't catch that initial move, I'm going to show you what came up afterwards, which I think was the best entry of the day for the MU. Okay, and then I'll show you the CAG, which will be similar, but basically the short variant, the bearish variant of that. Okay, so here is the MU. Okay, came in, put in a low there. I think it broke the VWAP by a little bit, and then put in a higher low. So what we have right there, I'm sure a lot of you technicians will recognize as a double bottom, right? And then once we get over this recent lower high, it's good to be played targeting new highs, right? On the MU there, right? So see that very clear kind of double bottom. Now this was the number one gap yesterday, okay, was the MU. That was the number one favorite. Now going into today, what was the favorite? The CAG. Okay, now if we're talking about size of the gap again, just needed to clear here, so it was a little bit big. If it just gapped underneath that, that's fine. Kind of gapped in between, but that's still pretty good. I do like that this triggered a daily buy setup and then failed on it. Okay. So if we go to the 5-minute on this CAG and we say, well, is there anywhere this morning where we have a double top? And I think it should stand out pretty clear here, right? And again, you get the double top. You clear, in this case, what was the higher low, right? And then the follow through comes, okay? So I think if you're one to really follow the charts, this is the kind of stuff, the confirmation that you like to see, right? Of course, we can always kind of fall into plays if we have a very strong bias towards it or want to be aggressive on it. But this kind of thing actually gives you time to set up, figure out the numbers, and give you confirmation, okay, on something like the CAG. Okay, so it came in early. Now, if you played it early on, that was good too, right? I was moderating the open. I think this was a good 2-minute sell. Unfortunately, this 2-minute sell did not follow through. Okay, so here was one that was pretty good. Okay, and then we got this 5-minute here. Okay, now I think what can be a challenge for some is, like, if we look at this CAG, for instance, when did this really decide to go, right? We had the open, had some follow through, and then it took almost 2 hours before it really got going. Now, if we look at the MU as well, right, we look at the MU from yesterday, came in and then didn't get going until here. You had some to be played at the open. If you only play the open the first 30 minutes or so, then that's your play, right? But the other way to get in, you can see this took about 30 minutes before this gave you that 2-minute double bottom. So I know in trading that sometimes, especially you're looking at 1-minute, 2-minute charts, 30 minutes, 2 hours can seem like an eternity, right? And so the point here is that we have to stay focused on these. Once we have our gaps, we know which ones are favorites, which actually we have that for even longer because we make that determination in the pre-market, right? We determine in the pre-market that MU is our favorite or the CAG based on the gap. Now the gap may change, so sometimes what is the best gap can vary from when pre-market to when it actually opens, right? But on something like this, right, I just want to point out this double top here because it does resemble what we got on the MU. And if that's kind of the environment right now where, it's a little bit different than something like the ABBV. If you recall the ABBV we had earlier in the week, right, that just after the first hour, it's done, right? Really, I guess you can wait, it's done, and then you can wait for the afternoon and play another breakdown. But the big moves are coming, right? The fast moves are coming in here. The big volatility is coming in here, right? So it's one of those things that I think it's really critical right now that we stay focused. I think it's easy, especially after the first couple hours, to kind of settle for the next thing that sets up and not necessarily the thing that we know is of the highest quality. Okay, so that was something on the CAG that I think was important if you were going to catch this or not. And I don't think there was really any other opportunity besides this. That is a nice 15-minute sell here. I did point this out to the room as well. That was a nice looking sell setup. You came in, you got the retracement and the follow through. Okay, so very interesting, I thought, on the MU, the CAG. You had to be a little bit patient with them, and you had to stay focused. And I think, especially for a lot of traders looking to just, trade the open, get a quick move, and be done, these are the kind of things that sometimes you can miss. Okay, I think we all kind of fall into that too, because who doesn't like getting a play early on, establishing a nice profitable day right from the get-go? But that's not always the way that the opportunities show up and the opportunities allow us to kind of structure our day. Okay, so I hope you did well today. I did think there were some opportunities, some pretty interesting moves here. We did have the RAD, which was a Climo here at the end of the day, so that's fading this big move up. That was pretty interesting, kind of exciting, right, to watch. A little bit different than our typical trend plays, but thought overall, especially in the indexes here, SPY and Q is pretty quiet. So bias is going to remain the same going into tomorrow. All right, and then using yesterday's high as our line in the sand of resistance there, we break over that, then we'll no longer be bearish, switch to a neutral bias, and we'll be neutral bullish if that happens. If this continues, we still have a bullish bias on the long term. It's just the short term remains bearish for now, so we'll see where this wants to get to, where support might set up before we get that kind of alignment between the short term and the long term. All right, that's going to do it for today's market wrap. We'll be back at it tomorrow to close out the week and see what the market brings us. Just want to mention also, there is still the limited time offer going on right now. Going on in the room, not only do you benefit from all the scanning, the focus, you also get the official plays and the official management. Okay, so I know we have a lot of people who have been joining this week, taking advantage of it. Some people who took a break, and a lot of new people as well. So now's a really good time to take advantage, because now you can get familiar especially if you choose to start your 30 days now, right? You'll be able to be a part of the room as earnings season comes and as the number of gaps and trades picks up, right? So you really get your bang for your buck. But if you start now, you will get familiar with the room, understand how the calls work, know what we're looking for, and so then by the time that things pick up, you won't get lost in the shuffle, okay? So check that out. The link is in the description, all right? But for now, we will call it a day, and I will talk to you tomorrow, all right? Have a good evening.